This is a 2011 Jeep Compass, all-wheel drive, and the lower ball joints have failed. They're real loose, so we're going to go ahead and replace those. However, we won't be replacing the control arms. We opted to save a little bit of money and just replace the ball joints in the control arms, so I'm going to show you how to do that. I went ahead and pulled the tire off. I didn't film it. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You can actually see, if you watch right here, see that play? That's why we're changing that ball joint. So we're going to take the lower control arm off. You can do it without taking it off, but once you unbolt it, you're loosening it up here, you take this apart, you're fighting this, so it's so easy to take off. 21 millimeter bolt goes right through. There's one that goes through the back side with a knot on top, and then this pinch bolt right here. So I'm going to loosen this up first and get the taper, well, it's not really a taper actually, get the steering knuckle loosened up so we can get the ball joint stem out of there so we're not fighting them once we loosen the other stuff up. I think on the back side, it's an 18 millimeter bolt. Now the replacement one is different, but this one here, I would have been happier if that bolt would have broke loose and started spinning. It didn't, which means the bolt is seized in there. So I'm going to change angles here and show you something. Right in here on the back side of this, let's see if we can get her to focus. Okay, let me do this here. Stay. Okay, right here. Here's where that bolt goes through. I'm going to take a chisel. I'm going to use an air hammer with a chisel bit, but you can use a regular chisel and hit that right there. And what that'll do is that'll kind of separate the two halves, loosen up the pinch on the stem of the ball joint, and we'll be able to get this out. If it doesn't come out, I'm just going to smack this with a hammer. You don't have to worry about this because you don't use it. The new ball joint comes with a new bolt and nut. So I'm going to hit that with the air hammer. You won't be able to see it, but I'm doing it. And then I'm going to drive that out. And then I'll probably hit that with the air hammer some more, and we'll be able to pry this whole thing down and separate it from the steering knuckle. Okay, I've got a flat chisel bit. I'm going to go in here and try to knock this thing loose. Okay, the bolt is almost out. And I can find a bit. I'm going to use a tapered punch. You can use a hammer and a punch too, but I'm going to use this here just to expedite things. Now there's many ways to separate the ball joint, but this is the most effective way that I prefer. I've got a piece of chain, and I'm going to go right over the top of the control arm with it and hook it back into itself. So it just forms a loop around the lower control arm. And I've got a pry bar. Some of you guys might recognize this. This is one of the old Ford torsion bars. The end of it twisted off. It's been the best pry bar ever. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to separate that a little bit more. I'm going to run the chisel into that little slot and try to separate those two halves. Oh, I need to be more organized. I lose my chisel. Bam! She's separated. All right. And you can see how easy that is to flop that ball joint around. It shouldn't be that easy. Okay. Now let's pull these other two bolts out. And I believe they're both 21 millimeters. Can't get at it. All right. The back one right here has a nut on the top side. You'll have to go in there with a box end wrench to get at it. And that one I'll have to get a swivel or do it with a ratchet, one of the two. Come on, people don't want to watch this. Fall out of there already. There. Okay. Let's try this. It's important to clean the rust off the end of the threads before you put this back together. Save yourself some headache. Now, I should be able to just pull this thing right out of here. I'm going to put a pry bar right there. You don't always have to, but it certainly helps. We'll pry the forward part of the control arm out first. And then wiggle it. And bam, we're out. I'm going to move you over to the bench now, and we'll work on getting this loose ball joint replaced. The first thing we got to do is get this boot off here because it's in the way. Okay, the factory ball joint was pressed in from the bottom side of the control arm, so we're going to drive it that way to get it out. The replacement ball joint, it's important to note, actually drives in through the top side, and then it has a retaining O-ring, or I'm sorry, like a snap ring clip, a large snap ring that goes around it just as a safety precaution. To expedite this, well, there's several ways you can do it. You can take it won't fit in my press, it won't sit flat, but I'm sure if I messed around, monkeyed around enough, I could get it. The other way to do it is you can simply put it in the jaws of your vise, which I don't recommend, but I've done it. Or you could just put it on a couple of blocks and you hammer, with a big heavy hammer, you hammer the ball joint this way and it will drive it out of here. These typically aren't that hard to remove because this is just a stamped piece right here. It's not like a cast iron axle. So I'm just going to use a ball joint press, and maybe I should show you the ball joint press. If you don't have one, you can get one. This is my ball joint press right here, and I bought it from Advanced Auto. I don't shop at Advanced Auto often, but I saw this tool there, and I bought it. I want to say it was about 160 bucks, but you can pay the deposit on it, and they'll rent it to you, well, loan it to you actually, and then when you return it in the same condition you borrowed it in, they give you back all your money. So essentially you can use it. There's a C-clamp, the C-channel piece of it. So if you don't have it, you can certainly get it, but it actually, we're only going to use a couple of adapters out of here, so let me get set you back up. You don't have to do what I'm going to do, but I'm going to take my cutoff wheel and I'm going to cut the stem off. You don't have to do that, but it seems like you fight more with it if you don't. So I'm just going to take my cutoff wheel. I'm not going to film it because it's boring. I'm just going to cut through here. You can use any means of cutting you want. A cutoff wheel, sawzall wouldn't work very well. Plus this is hardened. You could torch it off, but I'm just going to use my cutoff wheel. I'm going to cut through this, and then I'll bring you back and I'll show you the procedure. It's real easy. Okay, I used my cutoff wheel. It literally took 30 seconds. I got a 7.5-inch angle grinder with a cutoff disc on it I bought from Tractor Supply. So I cut the stem off, which gives me a nice flat surface to push against. I found this cup out of that kit, out of that ball joint kit, that slips right over. It fits loosely, so there's room inside this for the ball joint to press. And let's go ahead and knock it out. I'm moving. Just needed a little air, that's all. Here's the old ball joint. Let me wait till the compressor stops. We'll put this back together. Okay, the ball joint's out, and I just want to show you the difference. Here's the new ball joint. I took the rubber boot off it, the grease boot. Take the boot off because you need it off to press it in. If you leave it on, you'll screw it up. But just some, you can imagine, we got to pretend that this one has a stem sticking out. I cut it off, but you can see on this one how it's skinnier here, and then it shoulders up. The shoulder's on the bottom, so this one presses in from the bottom. Well, the new one's got this big collar shoulder on the top with a provision for a snap ring all the way around it. So this one presses in from the top side this way. So for ease of installation, I'm going to turn the control arm around because I don't want to have my impact gun way back here. So let's turn this around in the vise. And you can buy these assembled with, you can buy these control arms with new ball joints in them. But for like a quarter of the price, you can buy just the ball joint. In this case, this is what we opted to do to save the customer some money. And it's not an issue. I mean, I'm filming it, so it might take an extra couple minutes, but it literally only takes 10 minutes to change a ball joint once you have the control arm out. And you have to take it out anyway to change it. So let's go ahead and put it in. It's going to go this way. Remembering that the same cup, the ball joint fits right in there. And there's actually a little ring around here that the ball joint goes through, and the cup just fits snugly around that. So we know we're golden there. So we're going to put it in like that. We're going to... Whoop, dropping stuff here. And we're going to pass the stem of the ball joint. I better make sure you guys are still in frame here. Yeah, you are. We're going to pass the stem of the ball joint through that open hole, just like that. And then we're going to tighten her down. And as we tighten this down, it's going to suck that ball joint right in. It'll pull it right into place. Theoretically. Sometimes on a tight application like that, if you hit it, it actually shocks it and it'll start to go. But let me straighten this out here. We're getting on it crooked. Oh, crooked again. Give me a hard time here. Let's try this. A little bit more. And it's in. Let's look at it. We want to make sure that that little groove that runs all the way around the ball joint is all the way through, because that's what our snap ring goes on. And the snap ring acts as a like a safety, a fail-safe in the event that you know, the ball joint or the control arm was ever loose to the point where the ball joint didn't press in as hard as it did, which clearly we don't have that problem. The snap ring would hold the ball joint in place so that you're not falling apart going down the road. Okay. Just a simple snap ring, some snap ring pliers, and we're going to put that in place. Let's go down here, we're not all the way down. There we go. Did you hear it snap? Snap ring? Get it? Alright. Now while it's in the vise, I'm going to throw the grease fitting in. I'll be right back. Let me go grab that. Something that a lot of people don't think about is when you take your vehicle in for an oil change and it's got aftermarket parts. I say aftermarket because most of the factory stuff comes non-greasable. If you're replacing a ball joint, or I guess tie rods are pretty much all the same, but make your grease zerk accessible as possible with the tire on the car. And what I mean by that is don't have it pointed in towards the tire, have it pointed out towards the center of the engine, so that whoever's doing your oil change will more than likely grease it. Because what I found a lot of times is if these guys at the oil change places, if they can't easily get a grease gun on there, they just skip it, and then your parts wear out prematurely. So I like to turn these ones so they're facing in, so when the vehicle's all assembled and it's and the tire's on and maybe it's up on a lube rack or something, it's really easy to get a grease gun and just fill that thing full of grease. So I'm going to reposition the camera. We're going to put the control arm back in the car. Something to make your job a little bit easier when installing a control arm that fits in a stamped area like this right here. Sometimes it's difficult because of the angles. Take a hammer and just tap it a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. And that little tiny bit that you flex that will make it that much easier to fit that back up into place, and when you tighten it down, it's going to pull it right back in. I fought when I was younger. I used to fight with these all the time. Not on this vehicle, but, you know, same scenario, different vehicle. And I found that if you just tweak that, just tap a little bit with a hammer, flexes it enough, the control arm will go right into place. Another thing to point out is don't forget to put your grease seal back on. because you'll be mad at yourself, because then you'll have to take it all back apart. So, if you remember the order that it came out, we got to put the back in first, and then we'll work the front in. Now before we even put the front bolt in, I want to get the back bolt started, because the back bolt, the bushing is actually kind of twisted because there's no weight on the suspension. So we'll just start that nut a couple threads that'll hold that in place. So it can't go anywhere. Now we'll line this one up. Notice off camera I wire wheeled that, I cleaned that up. So, because it's a captured nut, you can't get at the nut, it's hidden inside the frame. And the last thing you want is issues with that. Now I'm not going to tighten either one of these up yet. I'm going to leave them loose. I'll explain that in a minute. We want to get this ball joint put together before we do anything. Okay, so it started, but it's not all the way up in there because there's tension. So what I'm going to do is find the bolt. I'm going to put the bolt in the hole and apply pressure on it. Not a lot, just with my fingers, and tap on this. There it goes. Until the bolt goes through, then we know it's in the collar. We know it's sitting right where it's supposed to be. I can't see anything because I got that light in my eye. Okay, we're going to go ahead and tighten this down. We're going to tighten it down so it pinches the ball joint stem. Okay. Now, let me grab my jack. And if you're doing this on the floor, you can just use a regular jack or whatever, but we don't want to tighten these bolts up until we've got some tension on the suspension. And the reason for that is wherever we tighten them up is where the bushings are going to be set. And obviously the vehicle, the suspension's not at rest right now. It's totally sprung. The springs are pushing it all the way down. So ideally, if we had like a drive-on rack or something, we'd put the tire on it and let the vehicle's weight kind of settle the suspension, and then we would tighten everything up there, but I'm just going to use this jack. And I can hear the bushings creaking, so they're moving. And basically what I do, since it's up on my lift, is I take the weight of the vehicle off this corner. As soon as this one hoist arm gets loose, you can see the control arms going up. As soon as this hoist arm gets loose, or I get scared, one of the two, I stop and I tighten it down. Okay, the hoist arm is loose, so I'm going to tighten down the suspension right where it's at. And again, those two were 21 millimeter, 13/16, whatever you got, same size. When I tighten that down, it pulled that stamped steel right back into place. We'll pull the jack out of here. And you can see what I was talking about, how when the tire's on, you'll still be able to get in here and fill that with grease because it's pointed right back at the engine. So let's go ahead and put some grease in it. You want to fill it up so that you see that there's grease inside there, but you don't want to explode it. I got grease leaking out of my fitting. We got two fittings in one. That's kind of cheesy. And it's done. I'm going to put the tire on it and ship it. It's that simple. That's not hard at all. That's relatively easy. So if you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching, especially you guys that watch all the way to the end. Thank you.